more established companies. So areas where there's little off-street parking.
Brilliant.
Communities express the desire to have a charge point in situ.
Oh, great. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity for you all to meet and network, and even with fewer than planned, it'll still be a really interesting session. So we'll get started. The theme of today is energy, and we've got Jenny from Rossendale Valley Energy, Anne from More Renewables, and Tim from Whalley Community Hydro. Obviously with a smaller group, it'll be a bit more informal, but the structure will be sort of a short presentation and then some time for questions and a bit of chat. So without further ado, and I will keep everyone on time, I will hand over to Jenny, and I've got some slides, so I'll share my screen.
Slides,
and Jenny, yeah,
thanks. Somebody else.
That's mine.
Okay. So can everyone see that? Are we good to go? Is that okay?
Yes.
Brilliant. Okay. Hi. Well, hello everybody. We've finally got started after a few hiccups, haven't we? I'm Jenny, and I'm from a community business organisation called Rossendale Valley Energy, who you may or may not heard of, and we are based in Rossendale Valley, and we are. Could you move on to the next slide, please, Sam? I just want to tell you a little bit about what we do. We've got lots of different projects going on at the moment, but I mainly want to talk to you about our lead project today, which is our local energy advice demonstrator. But who we are is we're a community-owned renewable energy group, and we want to empower people to reduce their carbon emissions, improve their energy efficiency in their homes, help them reduce their energy bills, make homes healthier and warmer, and ultimately reduce that carbon footprint as we move towards net zero. So we realise it's a big ask, but we've got lots of things going on at the moment that are all working towards this. And we're trying to get people involved. And we want to do we're very much a grassroots up organisation. So this is we sort of operate on a co-production basis, talking to our local communities. What do they want? What motivates them? What worries them? And all those kinds of things. So that's very much what we're about. We're a very young organisation. I've been working with them since November last year. I think they actually were set up. They came out of I don't know if any of you have heard of decarbonising Rossendale. That was the forerunner for Rossendale Valley Energy. And as I say, I've been working with them since November last year. Prior to that, I was with Citizens Advice for 18 years. So I've very much got an advice and project management background. But we've got all sorts of different people involved. From some of you may have heard of Kate Gilmartin. She's on our board. We're working with lots of different people with different skills, different areas of expertise. So it's we're a small group, but we're dynamic. So if you could you move on to the next slide for me, please, Sam? So these are the main people who we're working with on the local energy advice delivery project. So we're working quite closely with Rossendale Borough Council. The Department for Energy Security and Net Zero are funding this lead project, which I'm going to tell you a bit more about in a minute. And that's funneled to us through the Northwest Net Zero Hub, who are based in part of the Liverpool City region. And we're also working with an organisation called the Centre for Energy Equality, and they've developed an app called Fairer Warmth, which we utilise a lot in our energy advice delivery. So I will tell you a little bit more about that later on as well. So could we have the next slide? So these are the main projects that we're doing. Say the lead project, which I lead on the lead. I'll go into some detail on that. We also do something called Energy Heroes in local primary schools, and that's we go in to local primary schools and we work with year 5, so they're sort of 8, 9-year-olds, and the work that we do with them is based around the maths syllabus. So we go in, we talk to the whole school at an assembly, and then we go with the year 5 people. We've got 2 people involved who are teachers, so they're the ones who deliver this. I've never actually delivered it. And they do an energy audit of the school, and then it's spread out over 5 lessons, and they're doing things like reading meters, going home and finding out where the most of their energy use is coming from. And, you know, we get feedback from parents saying, you know, they love it, it's absolutely great, but they just want me to use the torch on my phone now and telling me off for switching a light on and things like that. So that's based around, it's making maths applicable to what's going on in their everyday lives and sort of raising consciousness about decarbonisation and energy efficiency and climate change. So that's really popular with the schools. And then we've also got our huge project, which is net zero terrace streets, and that's in its infancy. Lots of people involved, lots of different organisations are involved in this, and this is about getting streets within Bacup, which are terraced houses, so they're hard to retrofit. And I think I've got this right. As I say, it's very much in its infancy, and it's about installing a smart local energy system, ground source heat pumps with no upfront cost to the householder. The debt is going to go onto the infrastructure. I think that's how it works. So that is in its very, very early stages now, and we're working with companies like Borough Happold and Innovate UK and all those people. And I think that the thinking behind this is, if you can do it in terrace streets in Bacup, you can do it anywhere. So that's what that involvement is. And as I say, very early stages at the moment. We're just getting 3 houses, which are going to be our demonstrator houses, where we can do all the testing. And two of those will have people living in them while we're working on one of them, and one of them will be a show house that members of the public can come round and look at the work we're doing. So that's the big project, which the lead project also feeds into a little bit. So you could take me on to the next slide, please, Sam. So yeah, so we're the lead project, and we're quite a small thing within Rossendale Valley Energy. But we're a small team, there's 4 of us. We've got 2 energy advisors, an energy champion. We've just taken on 2 volunteer energy champions who are getting involved with us. And we're going out and we're advising people in Rossendale with energy saving hints and tips. How it's the lead project is a pilot project that's been funded, like I say, by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. And it's very much test and learn. So across the country, there are 36 different projects, I believe, and I think we're all working in very different ways, so that we're obviously reporting back monthly to the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, who are taking all that we're finding the hope is that this will influence government policy going forward. So it's all we want everything to be innovative and agile and flexible. So we're, as I say, I'll come on to it in a little bit. We're working, the way that we're working innovatively is with the Fairer Warmth app. There are other ones that are doing it in just purely conservation areas. Some people are doing it through B&Q and advising people there as they're going in to get all their DIY stuff and things like that. So there's lots of different, very innovative projects that are going on. The way we're doing it is we want to, our target is the people who are left behind within all this, who can't afford to, you know, retrofit the homes, and certainly can't afford heat pumps even with the government grant, and bringing those along with us and talking to them about what motivates them, what are they scared of. We're finding that by far the biggest motivator for people to fit retrofit measures is saving on energy bills, which is, you know, probably a no-brainer. But, you know, there are some people who are coming to us and saying that they want to improve their health. There are some that are coming to us saying that they want to improve the value of their home. Others, some are coming and saying they want to reduce the carbon footprint. But by far the biggest section of people, what their motivation is reducing their energy bills. So that is what we're doing. We're giving them hints and tips how to do that, how to manage their energy bills, how to use less energy, and crucially, what grants they may be eligible for. So Eco4 and Flex and all those things. When we identify someone who's eligible through the app, we then refer them to Cozy Homes in Lancashire, because they're dealing with the grants. So that's what we're doing with that. So could we have the next slide, please? So we're working with lots of, the original thinking, as I say, it's very much test and learn. And before I joined, I think the original thinking was that people would see a QR code, download the app, and away they'd go. And I kind of thought, I don't think that's going to work. And it's not, it hasn't worked, to be honest. So that's one of the things that we have learned, is that that could be for various reasons, I think. I think there's issues within energy advice at the moment because there's a lot of scammers out there, we're finding. People are getting cold calls. There's all sorts of things. So we're having to build up trust with people. We're having to build relationships with people. It's very much in some ways going back to the old-fashioned way of engaging and reaching people. So we're working with all these groups that are on this slide, community groups, the voluntary sector, health, libraries, all those people. Private landlords, I have to say, been our biggest challenge so far, as we knew they would be. But you know, the community has been absolutely fantastic with so many people have given us premises that we can do an advice hub from. The local GP surgeries are sending out text messages for us with links for how people can get in touch with us and get onto the app. So we've had a great support within the community in Rossendale, so that's been fantastic. But people going out, scanning a QR code and downloading an app, no, that's not happening. So that's one of the main things that we're learning so far. So could I have the next slide, please? So yeah, so this is the app that I've been talking about, and it's, as I say, this is a link to it. It's been developed by the Centre for Energy Equality, and it's called Fairer Warmth. And what this does is, we quite often help people to do this. 9 times out of 10, we're helping people. People go on the app, and pegged onto the app are EPC data, council tax data, various other things. So that gives us a lot of information. If that house property's got an EPC rating, that gives us lots of information about that property. So someone will go on and they will just put some basic details in, name, email, address. That then gives them lots of data. They then go on to ask them some very basic details about income. It's very broadly banded, the income details, number of people in the household, who their energy supplier is, those kinds of things. And that then throws up for them any grants that they may be eligible for. It gives them an action plan of what they can do to reduce their energy usage. There's lots of hints at how the people can save on energy. And probably more importantly than anything is they could also on there ask for support from an energy champion. And then we can get in touch with them and give them further, more in-person bespoke advice around their actual situation. So the app's still in development. We're still working with CE on it. We're building a case management system into it now so that we can manage cases more effectively. But we need to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible so that when we do get, for example, volunteer energy champions, they can be up and running with it quite quickly. So these are just this is just how you can get in touch with us. There's an online referral form there for partners. That's a link to the app for you, and that's the generic email address that we're using. So basically, that is a bit of a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing on the lead project. As I say, very much pilot, very much test and learn. Things that we didn't think would work are working, and vice versa. But you know, if there's anybody here on this call, I'm not sure if there's from Rossendale who's helping us within the community, thank you so much, because we are getting an awful lot of support. Thanks very much. I don't know if anyone's got any questions. No.
Thanks, Jenny. That was really interesting. Yeah, just yeah, good to hear more about so I think so working from groundwork, we have like a Green Doctor program, which is sounds a bit similar.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But yeah, really good to hear about other programs and supporting people.
Yeah.
I imagine you would have been quite busy over winter with the still cost of living and everything like that.
Could I just
very much? Of course, yes.
Could I ask a quick question? So are the people installing, I think you said ground source heat pumps?
Heat pumps, yeah.
Are they grouped to?
Yes, they will be.
Do they each have an individual bore in effect, or are they grouped to a central bore?
They're grouped to a
Seems okay.
central, as far as I understand. This is very much in in the early stages. My understanding is it's an ambient loop, so they're linked up to a central bore, and then I think it's maybe I think they share it between two properties, a smaller one, but I'm not great on the technical side of how this, because I'm not involved with that so much. I'm more on the advanced side. But yes, it's a central bore, is my understanding.
I think the Scandinavians particularly have got that down to work of art pretty much.
Yeah.
And for economy, I think it's probably essential, isn't it, rather than each having to have an individual
Yes.
bore.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Same question in effect, to make it more efficient. Have they also all got solar energy?
They've got solar panels.
The heat pump.
Yes.
They
so
have.
I don't think, from what my understanding is, it's not a deep retrofit, because that isn't cost effective in terms of energy saved or energy produced. But because what we want, people will pay for this via a standing charge. So there's no upfront cost, because that's obviously a barrier for a lot of people. Sure. So there's no upfront cost, so they will pay by standing charge. They will lose, if they're on the gas grid, they will lose that gas standing charge, so they're not having to pay that anymore. So they're hoping, and this is all part of what's being worked out at the moment, that they can keep that standing charge as low as possible, so people won't be paying more than what they are at the moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's quite complicated. It does. Yeah. So it's all going to, there's no upfront cost. It's going to be done by a standing charge. And my understanding is they're working with Borough Happold. I don't know if you've heard of Borough Happold. They're doing the techno-economic modelling for it. And the aim is to bring the standing charge down as low as possible. I don't think we can say to people, we can reduce your energy bills on what you're paying now, because some people may be paying a very small amount. A lot of people have the gas capped. They're not even paying the gas standing charge because they just can't afford it. So I don't think we can offer that, but I think we're working very hard on getting that standing charge down as low as possible.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds brilliant. Yeah. Who's actually, how much funding is this going to require? Because obviously it will have to be funded.
Well, we're talking, I think, as I say, I'm not involved at this level of it, but we're talking to pension funders and UK Investment Bank. They don't want to be funding dependent. They want it to be self-sustaining eventually. But that's, this is a very long-term project. This lead project's only got another. But what we're hoping with the lead projects is, by using the Fairer Warmth app, we're going to be able to pick up and map people who will be eligible for the net zero terrace streets. So the next stage of app development is not only that we're giving them energy advice, but we're going a little bit further now and trying to find out, are they going to be interested in the net zero terrace street? Because we need about, per street, I think we need to make it feasible, about a 30% uptake. So we're hoping, that if someone's, a couple of people on one street say, yes, I'm interested, and then something similar is being done in Cornwall, and there it was very much word of mouth on that road, where a couple of people got it, they talked to the neighbours, they said, oh yeah, and that's how we're hoping we can build up some interest. But this has to be replicable and scalable, really. So, but it's very complicated when you get into the actual how it's going to be delivered. Yeah.
Are you talking Totnes in Cornwall?
Yes. No, Stivians.
Yeah.
Harvey, have you got a question?
Yeah, thanks, Jenny, for that. Really interesting. My question is, well, I'll sort of comment first. Is the the app sounds great, but again, it shows that even though sometimes we've got the technology, it's hard to then get people to engage with it. But I suppose that will hopefully pick up. So then, a couple of questions following on from that. One is that app something that you've developed, or is that part of a national scheme? Is it a national app? Are there other pilot projects around the country? So that's one question. And then the second one is, so yeah, how many? I know it's still in the early stages, but are you getting people, or how do you know how many people you've got that have sort of signed up, or that are getting involved with the project? Have you got any numbers yet that you can share with us?
On the lead, right. First of all, your question about the app. Harvey, yes, that's it's been developed by the Centre for Energy Equality. I think RVE were one of the first organisations that they've worked with, so we've been very much involved with them on co-producing this app. So I meet with them very regularly, and we're feeding back to them about what we need, what the team need as advisors in order to be able to deliver the job, what's working, what's not working. So the app, when I started in November, and the app as it is now, are two very, very different things. And that I know they are working with other organisations as well. They're working with other lead projects. I think they're going to be starting working with some group up in Lancaster shortly. So it is going to, but it's not a nationally owned, not a national app. No, it's the Centre for Energy Equality who've developed it. So they're quite a small but expanding team. And I think they've sort of got a social conscience, and they don't want people to be left behind in the transition to net zero. So it's very much about equity and fairness. And sorry, I've forgotten what your second question. Oh, numbers. Sorry, yes, numbers. Well, really, the lead project was late in starting, and then we had to plan and mobilise. So really, we've only delivered in this quarter, and I'll very quickly have a look so I can give you some numbers. I think it's about 140 people. Yeah. At the late. So since January, we've worked with about 140 people on getting them to, you know, access grants, reduce their energy, more manageable bills, and very much what's becoming a strapline for us now is healthier, warmer homes, because I'm really pleased at how the NHS is starting to take this on board, and we're starting talking to them now about warm home prescriptions and things like that. So there's a lot happening.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jenny. No, that was really interesting. Yeah, presentation, and then those questions as well. So yeah, we'll share contact details if anyone wants to get in contact and find out more.
What I'll do is, if it's okay, I'll put my own email in the chat, because that info one's a bit of a generic one, so I'll just put my own in. If anybody wants to contact me directly, please do.
I'm going to try and move swiftly on now to Anne, because we've got two more presentations. But Anne, would you like to present on more renewables? I think you might be on mute. Yeah, I think you're on mute, Anne.
And then slideshow from beginning. Yeah, so we don't do the sort of community, the energy advice type stuff that you've just heard about, because there's other organisations in Lancaster that are working on that. We sort of set up really to provide funding for those organisations. We started in 2011, and with the aim of doing renewable energy, also giving people somewhere to put their money. So put your money into something good locally, rather than putting it in the banks. So this is the plan of you've got the investors buying shares in the cooperative, but we're now a community benefit society. There are various changes in regulations, and that goes into a renewable energy project. And it says free electricity there, because when we started off, there was the feed-in tariff at quite a good rate, but now we have to charge for electricity, and and then we get the income from it, and we use that to pay our members a return for their investment, what's called share interest, and funding, community benefit funding. We've got community benefit fund, which has done some funding of organisations that are providing energy efficiency advice. So we've done these 3 share offers. We've got about 40 members, have an annual income of a bit over 20,000, and we pay 4% a year. Oh, it says there at the end of 2022 we had 37 members. So our membership is going down as people withdraw their capital. And what we really need to do is to find some new projects. The projects we've got are the solar PV system at Lancaster Co-housing. Importantly, they've got a private wire network, which supplies all the houses, and there's some office space in an old mill building. So they buy all the electricity from us. It feeds into that private wire network, and they sell it on to their tenants. And so we only have to have a lease with Lancaster Co-housing. So all the houses are leasehold, and in the lease, the roof space is reserved to Lancaster Co-housing. So we don't have to get into dealing with individual property owners. We just deal with Lancaster Co-housing. And then we also did this small biomass boiler at Horton Women's Holiday Centre. And we did that under some new form of agreement, a shared ownership agreement, and they've now bought that off us. Before this, they had a coal ray burn. So the biomass boiler does require a bit of work. It's a bit of sort of manual feeding, but it was a lot easier than what they had before. So then we've also done a small system at the Lancaster Boys and Girls Club, and again with a shared ownership. And we think that sort of agreement shares the risks and rewards. I mean, it means we don't make lots of money from it if it goes really well, but also we don't lose money if it doesn't work so well, because the agreement just gets extended. Basically, once our income from the system has met all our costs, so the capital cost and the ongoing costs, then the system is owned by the host organisation. And so I've got a bit here about how to do community solar schemes, you know, form your team, set up your organisation. And importantly now, there's this, you can get help from the business support for co-ops, which is run by Cooperatives UK. And then find your projects. And that is the most difficult bit, finding the projects. So there's a little bit how it works. So the main issue is finding the projects. So you need someone that's technically suitable, and particularly that's got a willing site owner who wants to work with you and doesn't just go off and then do it themselves after you've sort of talked to them about it for ages and done lots of work assessing it. And you need to think about, you know, is it going to be financially viable? You need to be able to sell the electricity at a reasonable rate and to be able to sell a reasonable amount of that electricity. And you've got these other issues. So I think, yeah, so that's a little bit about solar projects, what you need, large south-facing roof, and a building that will use all the electricity. So then I get into community shares, which I won't do here. So I'll stop there because I know we haven't got much time.
Thanks, Anne. No, that was really interesting, sort of whistle-stop tour of what you've done. So with, I guess, a question I have, sort of with those sort of three models of different projects, which one would you say was the most successful, or are they all sort of very different in their own
What
ways?
are the three different projects
Yeah,
that
you talked about, yeah.
But the Lancaster Co-housing one, well, it's the biggest. And
yeah,
we've got 90 kilowatt peak there that was done in two phases. And that generates the best. Yeah, so that's been quite successful. Yeah, and we've got the lease with them. So that's the one we're and particularly now with the you know, our income is all tied to inflation. The feed and tariff rates go up with inflation, and also what we charge. But so we have a model where, I mean, different community energy groups do it differently, but our model is that the lease says what's the price that somebody's going to pay us, the host organisation is going to pay us for the electricity. And that goes up with inflation every year. So it gives certainty to us and to them. I mean, it means that if you get a period where electricity prices go down, they might feel they're not getting a very good deal. But then we've had this period where the electricity prices have ballooned enormously. So now they're getting a really good deal. So the Boys and Girls Club are saving a load of money for what they would have otherwise paid, because they're buying quite a bit of their electricity from us. But it might take a few years for that to... Yeah. We're quite happy because we're getting, you know, what we need to get for the meets with our financial projections and things. Sorry, God.
Well, I was going to say, how did you get? How was the organisation started? What did it? I mean, obviously, it might come out of a need of people saying they wanted renewable energy, or.
Well, it was me. I'd been involved in LESS, which is LESS Community Interest Company.
Yeah.
Which still exists. It used to do energy, so I had a household energy survey. So I used to go around I was a volunteer on that and did lots of visiting people in their homes and giving them energy efficiency advice. And I was going to these conferences, and I could hear about people doing this elsewhere, doing renewable energy to provide funding for all the other work they were doing. And and we also was part of a project. It was a low carbon communities project in Halton, which is a village outside Lancaster, where Lancaster Co-housing is. And as part of that project, we got funding to do a solar PV system on a roof that was leased from a local factory. So that gave me the experience of roof leases and dealing with all that sort of stuff. And how to do a solar PV system. So then I set up more renewables with other people that I knew locally that I sort of went around recruiting people to be on my team. So so some of them are still directors.
Yeah.
Fell by the wayside. I've fallen by the wayside since, and somebody else come in, So
no, really interesting, definitely. And yeah, it might be a bit of a crystal ball question, but like, how do you see the future of sort of solar power within sort of renewable energy, net zero, all that? I mean, yeah, that's quite a big question.
It's becoming more viable again as solar prices have gone down, electricity prices have gone up. So we are talking to an organisation at the moment about doing a system on their building, and we're also applying for the Community Energy Fund to do a feasibility study for a small heat network. So I don't know whether any of those are going to come off. I mean, it might, we might do more projects, or we might get to the point, just run the existing ones and then it will fold. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that is can't tell the future, but hopefully it will. Hopefully it all will be good, and you'll get that funding, because it's definitely needed. And Harvey, have you got a question? You've got your hand up.
Yeah, quick one. I don't know if Tim looked like he was going to ask something. I don't know if you want to come in, Tim.
No, I just thought I recognised Anne's face, actually, because I probably have met you when I've been.
Yeah, we met before, I think.
I'm a visitor to Loon Halton Hydro on a fairly regular basis.
Good,
Yes.
Yeah. They also feed into the private wire network.
Yeah.
Which is one reason why Lancaster Co-housing need to buy all of our electricity, because they can't tell the difference between our solar PV generated molecule electrons,
right,
and the hydro ones.
Yes.
So, and then they keep the export.
Yeah, that works well.
And I'm not quite sure what deal they've got with the hydro, but that's the deal with us.
Great.
Okay.
No, so my quick question then, because I know we've got another presentation as well, was just how easy is it when you're approaching businesses or locations? Because I imagine it's one of those sorts of things that there's not really a standard model, so you can't really predict. Like, say you've got to do a feasibility study on each site, so I imagine that's quite tricky. I don't know, or is there a sort of a standard? Is it fairly easy to give people an idea of what they might be able to do?
Well, for solar, I think it's not easy to persuade somebody to let you put solar PV on their roof. So that's the first thing. I think you need a good relationship. So all the projects we've done, we knew the people in the other organisations. So that is the main problem. And if you're just talking to a business, which is primarily profit motivated, and you haven't got an existing relationship with them, I think it's really difficult. So, yeah.
Maybe if I can just interject there, putting solar on somebody else's roof, I think the principal problem, because we've investigated this quite deeply, is the question of insurance.
Well,
it's a very difficult one to solve.
So our insurance, it was initially 500 quid, and now it's gone up enormously to more like triple that.
Yeah.
And for the Boys and Girls Club, it's on their insurance.
Yes.
So we have public liability insurance for it, but not
Okay.
the loss and damage insurance. And there's another thing of like, and you know, because we've been told that if we wanted to put a new system on, the minimum premium would be £1,000. And unless you've got a really big system, that just makes everything unviable.
Sure.
But we're
Yeah.
sort of at the stage now where we could decide, well, we're not, you know, we could take the hit, you know, if it.
Yes.
I think Horton Lane Hydro, where they got knocked out by Storm Desmond,
Yes.
spent a fortune sorting it all out and putting an insurance claim.
Yep.
And which got paid, but then their premiums went up so much that they're now self-insured, so they're not insured.
Right.
I think. I mean, don't quote me, but that's what I
Yes.
understand.
I've sort of understood that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, very interesting, and yeah, good points about thinking about some of the logistics. So I will move on to Tim for the last sort of section of the session today. I think you're just going to talk to us about Whalley Community Hydro, Tim.
Yes, I might have to revise this in the light of the conversation we've had so far. But yeah, we've been asked to focus on the theme of energy, so I'm going to do that. And obviously it's going to be very much focused on hydro end of it. And I'm going to use the headings effectively that we were asked to pursue on the agenda. So hydro obviously needs water by definition, but it doesn't just need water, it needs a drop in level of water. And what that does, of course, is to provide a volume or a weight which can be converted into power. Case of Whalley, it's a 2.15 drop over an inclined weir. And we operate between about 1 and 6 tons per second of water to deliver something between 17 and 100 kilowatts of power. I think that's probably fairly common, that sort of range. And in fact, it's correctly called micro hydro by the government when they particularly set up the feed-in tariffs. The 100 kilowatts is their step change. If we had chosen to generate more than 100 kilowatts, we would have seen a very serious decline in our feed-in tariff, which at that point was 75% of our income. Rather summarizes the government, doesn't it, in many ways? And we will come eventually, in 10 minutes or so, to the problem that we are all going to face, where the feed-in tariff comes to a shuddering halt completely in 2034. Just then, to go back a bit though, if you are looking to generate power with hydro, the really basic decision you've got to make right from the very start is between an Archimedean screw and a turbine. And without presenting pictures of the both and things like that, essentially the Archimedean screw is a big chunk of heavy metal. It's, let's say, a long central tube with vanes projecting out of it, sort of 3-start screw. The top of that screw, when it's in position, is at the upper water level, and the bottom of the screw is at the lower water level. And as I say, in Whalley's case, that's 2.15 drop. One of the biggest problems that we encountered when we were at the feasibility stage, and this was in 2010, was that really there were 6, I think, hydro outfits running around the north of the country. Probably in this part of the world, the nearest ones would have been New Mills. No, probably, yeah, perhaps New Mills and Stockport, if you're sort of looking south of Manchester, and then a group of, let's say, more rural sets in Settle, Bainbridge, Linton, Millthorpe. So not many of them, and a big variety. So we didn't have really any we talked to them all, but we couldn't really get a lot of very relevant information and helpful information, because in contrast to solar and wind, in fact, the sites on which you can build a hydro plant are very, very, very limited. Because, of course, first thing is you need a weir. There is no point in thinking at all about constructing a weir in order to put a hydro on it. That would be completely out of order. And the authorities, every single authority you could imagine, would be against it. And in any case, it would probably cost you the first £1 million at the very least, on top of whatever it then costs to construct the generator. Having mentioned the problems, I think I'll come back to the problems. Probably one of the most interesting for the Assembly today would be what we need to solve now. And we've already mentioned that the feed-in tariff comes to a juddering halt in 2034, which, although it's 10 years off, will come up now quite fast. And we're just into our 10th year of running. What will help will be that, as also has been mentioned, that feed-in tariff does go up in line with the cost of living. So it is already providing a very, very substantial return. And in fact, we would, there's no way that we could have even started the feasibility study for a hydro if that had not been in existence at the time of, well, going back to 2010, I think it actually started. So in first way we can cushion, if you like, the ending of that tariff is by redeeming as many of the shareholdings as we possibly can in the meantime, so that we're not paying out such a level of interest. We wouldn't be able to afford the level of interest that we have been paid historically, which is 5%, as well as to still provide a really worthwhile community benefit. And the community benefit we would aim to keep up is a very bare minimum of £20,000 a year. We actually have hit a £30,000 distribution in 1 year. Whether we can do that again, I'm not sure. Certainly we aim to. Secondly, we can think about investing in extending with other community partners to create larger renewable energy projects. And larger meaning that we could probably share the income with the property, which would be what it would come down to, on which that investment was made. One of the other benefits of that would be that we could also possibly share the administration costs as well. That would be helpful. The other problem that we face with a mechanism like the hydro, let's say again in contrast with, particularly with solar, and to some extent with the wind as well, is that an aging plant, we're already approaching 10 years old, which is over 30,000 hours of mechanical churning around. Maintenance at that stage, which is quite high with a hydro, is then going to become renewal costs. And in the meantime, of course, all those costs with age are increasing exponentially without any question, as is the age of those administering the schemes. And we're probably, we can maintain ourselves to some extent, but renewal becomes more and more of a problem, certainly with the personnel. One of the things that arises from that, though, is particularly, and we're already finding this because unfortunately we lost two of our major directors literally just 1 year back, is that we need to make really serious efforts to archive and to save all the necessary, both legal and financial and running data relating to the plant. We haven't been doing that well enough, but we are very conscious that we're going to have to do it a lot better in the quite near future. How do Whalley Hydro is one of the other things on the agenda contribute to action on climate change? Well, we're generating, the design for the plant was to generate 345 kilowatts each year. In practice, we've generated over 500,000 on our best year. We might actually end up doing even better this current year. And what that has enabled us to do consistently has been to invest in gifting solar systems. And we've concentrated very much on gifting those to schools, vast majority being primary schools. Concept being that that's a very, very effective way, well, there's no way of definitely proving that with figures, of educating children. Because one of the, it hasn't worked in all of them, but one of the conditions, and we will enforce this rather more rigorously, is to have a large screen television up in the entrance to the school, which will give an instantaneous generation figure from their solar installation, the daily output, the weekly output, the total output over the years, not just in terms of kilowatt hours, but in particularly in terms of carbon saving, which can be done to a formula, and we do ourselves, in fact. But then every teacher that comes through the door, every kid that comes through the door, every parent that comes through the door, everybody, in a way, is forced to think about renewable energy every day of their lives. And I'm quite sure that they can incorporate that in classes, particularly in mathematics, and probably in other ways as well, so that the kids are really leaning on their parents to do something constructive about helping the climate change. Successes we've been asked to talk about. Have to go back a bit for this in one way. Certainly in pre-construction, when we were talking about to a principal contractor about contracts, it became very apparent that the contractor has a very, very different set of interests than the consumer does. And we were on the verge of having to part company with the contractor we did eventually place with, but only on the conditions that he converted their entire contract system onto a thing called NEC 3 it was then. And that was very, very comprehensive indeed, not only in all the phases of the construction, but particularly in terms of penalty clauses if the plant turned out not to be able to generate the figure that we were aiming for. Very important for everybody, I think, who's setting up any form of renewable energy. Post-construction, we are very conscious that we're heavily dependent, absolutely dependent, on the effectiveness of the voluntary, purely voluntary cleaners, because a hydro will, of course, bring in all the debris that happens to come down a river at any one point in time. A lot of the rivers are significantly cleaner than they used to be. River Calder is a very, very good example because it's flowed, the catchment area is up on the moors, but it is up on the moors beyond such a whole range of industrial towns, starting, let's say, Cone, Nelson, Burnley, Padiham, and onwards, which used to cause the colour of the water to change each day. Now we're finding that the water, and of course there are a whole collection of sewage works upstream and so on and so on and so on. Nevertheless, because we talk a lot with the fishermen, the stock of fish, although it's not catalogued nearly as effectively as Loon Hulton, is really, really good still. The fishermen vouch for that. And more so than the fishermen, the herring stands in exactly the same place on the weir, only about 10 meters away from the hydro plant, and picks fish out of the flowing water over the weir, which is a point of contention, actually, because we paid £90,000 to put a fish pass in. That was a condition of the Environment Agency when we built the plant. And it really isn't being used by the fish. So that's a bit annoying.
I'll just give you a few minutes warning, just because we're running over time. Sorry.
Okay, so should we say, are there any questions at this stage? I'd just make a quick point that the hydro does complement both solar and wind in a way, because although it's not continuous throughout the year, particularly in the summer, of course, it is absolutely 24-hour dependable throughout the winter, which is of course, the season of peak demand for all forms of energy, and particularly renewables. Let's have some questions.
Thanks,
Anybody
Tim.
got any?
That was really interesting.
Right, succession planning, which everybody has got. And yeah, it has to be done. And we missed these 2 directors who died a year back terribly.
Looks like Anne's got a question. I think she's got her hand up.
Okay, Anne?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues is that as people, you say you need to pay share capital back, but as people withdraw their share capital, you're losing membership?
No.
Oh, right. So how do you do it?
The answer is we've put at the last AGM, we put out a note to all the shareholders. So we are looking to redeem all the shares by 2034, but we do not want to end up with just the directors running this plant. It is a community effort, and therefore we are asking you to redeem all your holdings down to £250, which was the minimum investment at the point of investment.
So you haven't thought of going below that to like £10 or £5 or something?
No, that might be a point of contention. But at this moment, it's working fantastically well. I can't give you the exact figure, but I would say that we're probably well, we need to reduce the investment by £30,000 a year. And I think we've probably already redeemed more than £30,000 worth this current year. So it is working.
All
And
right, well, that's
we will
interesting.
be down to that minimum of £2,000 or £3,000 of interest.
You're asking, yeah, okay. You're asking people to keep 250.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
So what next? Quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
We're trying to, conscious of 2034, lock into an income which is, let's say, into which we can have rather more influence. And one of the ways of doing that and would be to sort of future-proof a contract, would be to try and do that with a local customer. It's always been our target to generate locally for consumption locally. And up till now, we've actually had to export all our electricity via the district network operator. That's been quite successful, but you are at the mercy of an industrial setup. And we'd like to be able to still distribute directly to a local. It wouldn't be, in our case, I don't think, a domestic setup. It's more likely to be a fairly large industrial setup. And the other possibility is to amalgamate Whalley Hydro with some other renewable energy generator so that we have a greater bargaining power, even if we continue. We actually sell at the moment through Good Energy, which we found to be very, very good, really honest and open, and I think do genuinely do the best. But, you know, they're a national, if you like, supplier, and we are very much in their hands.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tim. That was really, really interesting. Has anyone got any final questions before we close for the session? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone who was able to join. I do apologise we have run over a bit, but it was really fascinating from each of the speakers, and it's made me feel, well, it certainly taught me a bit about more renewable energy in the region, and sort of feel a bit more positive, I guess, about potential for the future, even though there are some challenges on the horizon, as there always are. But yeah, Harvey has been recording this session, so we will be sharing that with the network. So if there's anyone else who you think might have been interested, then we will share the recording so they can watch back. And we do have another lunch and learn scheduled for it's end of May. I think it's the 25th of May. Yeah, Thursday. Let me just check. I'll get my. When is it? Ooh. It is Thursday, the 23rd of May, which is themed around healthcare and sort of the connections between healthcare and the environment. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone, and see you all soon.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks very much,
Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Yes, have a good Easter. Bye.
Yeah.